Disclaimer. This podcast contains adult themes, adult dialogue, and spoilers. Our opinions are just that, opinions. We are not bashing any of the creators we discuss, and we are not bashing you if you perceive things differently than us. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. It's the 1800s. We are in Regency, London, and society just wants women to be pure and married, and for the men to be wealthy. Luckily for you, love ignores every rule. Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Story and Things, a storytelling podcast. I'm your host, Yajaira.
And I'm your host, Cheli.
And what are we reading today, Cheli?
We are reading the famous Duke and I, which was recently made into a Netflix series called Bridgerton. Mm-hmm. And it has been all over social media, all over TikTok mostly.
Yeah.
And we just thought we should talk about it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit about the author.
Okay.
This is a book made by Julia Quinn. And that's actually a pseudonym. Her real name is Julie Pottinger, and she's a best-selling American historical romance author. Her novels have been translated into many languages, and she's appeared on the New York Times bestseller list 19 times.
Dang, 19?
She's on there. The Bridgerton series that's on Netflix is based on the Duke and I and all the other 7 books which follow the family, the Bridgerton family.
Yeah. So each book is every sibling finding their own love story.
Yes. And for this one specifically, we are focusing on our 2 main characters. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell us about our first?
Our girl, Daphne Bridgerton. So Daphne Bridgerton is actually the 4th Bridgerton out of 8. And she is 21 years young. And 21 is way past due marriage. She is getting a little anxious because she really wants to be a wife and a mother. She's not really seen as desirable though because she's not like other girls. According to the men, she's not scary enough, whatever that means. And her other siblings, I'm just gonna name them here. It's Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne's the 4th, Eloise, Francesca, Gregory, and Hyacinth.
All in alphabetical order.
Alphabetical order, so you don't forget them.
The idea of, I don't know, old historical romance where you need to be married at 21 kind of gets
18,
me.
Actually.
Oh, gosh. That kind of gets me.
Yeah, because at this point in time, the mothers are the ones that are parading the daughters around trying to get them married. Mm-hmm. And it starts at 18.
Yeah, I mean...
So gross. I would lose my mind.
Okay, our next character is our deuteragonist. That's what you would call them. Oh, yay. Okay. And it's Simon. He is 29 years old, and he is known as the Duke of Hastings. He inherited the name from his father, and he lives with these inner demons as he was once disowned by his father at an early age for having a stutter. Mm-hmm. So I don't really want to spoil much with the story just yet, but our story actually starts with Simon. Yeah. Why don't we just start there?
Okay. Like Cheli said, the story starts off with Simon Bassett and his life. So he grew up with a stammer and his father reproached him for it. His father was desperate to have an heir for the dukedom. And when he finally had a son, unfortunately, the wife passed away.
If you want to picture it, just imagine Simon's mom dying and
slowly
Simon, being born and the dad just picking up Simon and going like
Simba, pretty much, just showing
son
him
here. Look at my son.
He's here.
He had people waiting in his house to look at his son.
Yeah.
That's weird.
That's gross.
That was weird. He just was so into having an heir. He would do anything to make sure that he had a son. Yeah. Because they had tried many times before that.
And unfortunately, the pregnancies kept failing. And then the other thing was that when Simon was born, his dad rode out into a horse and he was just like all excited, like, I have a son, partying and shit. And the mom was literally in bed dying.
Oh my gosh. It is horrible. Simon ended up, like you said, resenting his father because as soon as his father figured out he had a stammer, Simon was cut out of his life.
Yeah, he didn't want anything to do with him anymore. And at first, Simon was very determined to fix the problem. He worked with his Nurse Hopkins, to try to work through his speech. But by the time that he was 11, he went to go see his dad, and his dad was still not down for him. He still wanted him out of his life.
The vibes aren't there yet, Simon. You go.
No, he wanted to basically just not be a part of his life anymore.
Yeah. Which is sad. It is really sad.
Yeah, he made people believe that his son had passed away.
Yeah, because at age 11, Simon went to the Duke of Hastings, his dad, and tried to talk to him, but as soon as he stuttered, his dad said that you are no son of mine, I disown you. And at that age, Simon was like, he wants a perfect son, I'm gonna be the opposite. That's like the start. And
I'm gonna be the worst son
and then you
ever.
hear like the music that.
It's so stupid because his plan just didn't make sense to me.
Because his dad really wanted an heir.
Uh-huh.
So the point is, after his dad dies, the dukedom gets passed down to Simon, and then now he can have an heir. And that was important because he was the only male who can pass down the dukedom to someone else. Everyone else in his family was female. So Simon has so much responsibility. But he was like, fuck it. I don't need to do this.
But he didn't even desire to be married.
Mm-mm.
He didn't want a child. It wasn't in his future.
But you know what? Oh, we didn't even talk about the best.
Question.
Yes.
Did he know that he let his mom die?
No, they never brought up his mom again.
But who knows what was spoken between the nurses? Because the nurses did treat him as his own. And I'm pretty sure they did talk about what type of father he had.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone knew, but probably not Simon, not fully.
Yeah. And besides, like, all of the nurses really loved his mom.
Yeah. I think we should move on because this story at this point was so good to me. I love how fleshed out Simon's character was.
Yeah. Yeah, I even told you that I really admired that she started with our love interest as opposed to Daphne because it made us more invested in him.
Yeah.
And usually with the love interest, we don't actually know much about them until they're telling the main character.
You said you compared it to Twilight.
Did I?
Do you remember? Because we didn't know much about Edward at all, except that he was like, you know,
brooding.
Doesn't want to smell.
I know. She doesn't want to smell her. She stinks.
But it's just kind of like, oh, he's so cold. I want to know him.
I want to know why.
Yeah, but at least with Simon, we knew his background. Mm-hmm. But okay, before we move on, can I just say one thing? Mm. In the back of the book, there is a synopsis of the book.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And there's one line at the end, and it just says, wait, hold on. Is it its own paragraph? It is.
It's its own paragraph.
Love ignores every rule. Every rule.
Does it?
Well, it has to. I mean,
it's in the book.
Whatever you write on the book is law now. So it better ignore a rule. If it doesn't, I'm turning it back. Our story starts with our main character, Daphne, who is reading a gossip columnist.
Yes. It's an anonymous gossip columnist named Lady Whistledown.
Love it.
So basically our gossip girl, and she basically just lets us know everything that's happening, of the balls that are going on, the social events.
Mm-hmm. And they read about themselves on it because Lady Whistledown does not spare anyone any slack. Yeah. She goes off on them, but they didn't really say anything bad about the Bridgertons.
No, she basically said in her column that the Bridgertons look like mirror images of one another.
Love that.
And she can't say that about other families. So she's roasting other families, which I wish she would have said a name, you know? She should have told us the tea.
I know. Throughout this book, Lady Whistledown's in this a lot. And I kind of like the idea of like, oh, you can kind of learn about the world through Lady Whistledown. Yeah. That's what I thought Lady Whistledown was going to be. She is it for a while, but I don't think she completes that well. But that was a good way to introduce the Bridgertons because we're introduced to Daphne, who is sitting right next to her mom, Violet.
In the column, they also mention Simon's returning because his father's dead. R.I.P.
Yeah, because after that whole him swearing and Dirty Little Secrets playing, he moved away and then his dad died and he came back. Yeah. And now he's ready. And that's what the columnist said. He's ready.
He's ready to, tie someone down?
I guess so, because this ball that is going to take place is a place to showcase the girls that need to get married. Single ladies. All the single ladies.
All of the single ladies. So when they're reading about Simon, they bring up that Simon is actually Antony's former friend.
Which is Daphne's older brother.
Yeah, the eldest of all the Bridgertons. Mm-hmm. And at the mention of him, Violet is like, he's too old for you. Don't.
Yeah, he's 29, she's 21. That's mentioned, and it's kind of just dismissed. Like, she has no interest in the Duke right now. She's just like, I gotta go get married at this ball.
At the ball.
At the ball. Like, right there, there's gonna be a marriage.
There's a priest.
She goes to this ball, and what we notice is that she does not really have any suitors.
She has one suitor who she does not like.
Do you see Niles' face?
I feel that, Niles. I feel that. She has one suitor who she deems is too stupid, but she also says that he is nice. but also stupid.
and nice.
Stupid and nice, yeah.
Vibes.
So his name is Nigel Burbrook, and she's actually trying to avoid him at this ball. So she's like trying to stay hidden. And then she goes into a hallway, and in this moment, he's trying to push himself over her.
So while this is happening, because they're in a hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you watch the Bridgerton series, the show, they're outside.
Yeah.
But the hallway's funnier because
It's a small hallway.
while this is happening, remember Simon said that he doesn't want to marry anyone, but he wants to come to this ball only to visit Lady Danbury, who is the person who's hosting it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like in his head, I'm going to go in and then out. I'm just going to say hi to Lady Danbury and I'm out. So he's going through the hallways.
Yeah.
Like, and they're dark, by the way. There's no light bulbs back then. I don't know if you know.
Just candles.
Just candles. Weak. He's walking through this lit hallway and he notices a girl and a guy who are struggling with each other, and the guy is raising his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Daphne and Nigel. And at first he's just kind of looking because he doesn't want to be this random hero.
He really doesn't. He's just like, ugh, I really don't want to save the day today.
Not today. It's not Wednesday. Daphne says no.
Yeah, Daphne says
Super
no.
loud. And he's like, I gotta go save her. Well, not really. He's just like, I gotta go do something.
Yeah.
So he starts walking up to both of them, and he just sees Daphne punch Nigel right in the face.
Well, he's running. He's
Yeah.
trying to intervene, but at that point, she punches Nigel, which she knocks him out cold.
Yeah,
He's
that's
dead.
a good punch.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Because they're assuming that he was drunk, so that's why he's just falls to the floor and he's dead for a couple chapters.
You know, in first read, when I read that, I was so like, I love Daphne. Because I thought she was cool because
Yeah.
the fact that she's doing things that wouldn't be common in Regency London.
Yeah.
And I thought, look at what she's capable of. And I think that was a good way to have the characters introduced to each other.
Yeah, especially because we don't know if girls even really defended themselves at this point in time.
Yeah. This whole scene after Nigel knocked out, imagine a small hallway. If you were to like knock out in a hallway, you aren't going to land straight. So he's like limbs kind of bent in a weird way.
Yeah, he's uncomfortable.
Our beautiful main characters do nothing about it for like maybe 20 pages.
They contemplate whether or not to just leave his body there or drag his body somewhere else so that no one else will see him.
That's such a weird situation.
It was
But you know
weird.
what? Even throughout all that, they're kind of vibing with each other too.
They are. So Simon is immediately taken back by Daphne's beauty, even though he does say she's not the typical beauty.
Can I read something?
Yes, go ahead.
Just like an amazing moment when he was looking at her. She rose to her feet, dusting her hands off on the sage green silk of her skirts. Her hair had been styled so that one thick lock fell over her shoulder, curling seductively at the top of her breast. Simon knew he would be listening to her. She was prattling on about something, as women were wont to do. Okay, weird. But he couldn't seem to take his eyes off of that single dark lock of hair. It fell like a silky ribbon across her swan-like neck, and Simon had the most appalling urge to close the distance between them and trace the line of her hair with his lips. So was he like...
What?
He wasn't even vibing with Daphne.
It was her girl.
I know, he was like, oh, damn.
Damn, girl.
Let me get a taste of that curl.
What type of shampoo you use?
Wait, did you use Tresemme hairspray? That's my favorite. Oh my god.
It smells so good.
Let me lick it. It's so weird.
It was weird.
That's weird.
I honestly think that I must have skimmed over that part completely, or maybe I envisioned it differently. I was like, maybe he's talking about her breasts. You know, that makes more sense.
But no, it's just that one piece of brown hair. Through their conversations, they're just kind of feeling each other, you know, they're vibing.
Yeah, and even Daphne finds him really attractive. She compares him to some statue.
That's cut short when they realize who they are.
Yeah, because Nigel ends up mumbling Daphne's name and Simon completely freaks out because he can't break bro code.
Which is, don't sleep with thy friend's sister.
Yeah, exactly. So
Oh my gosh.
then he tells Daphne who he is, and she freaks out too. Because also, we didn't bring this up, he is known as a rake, which is essentially a fuckboy, because he's not trying to be tied down.
Ye old fuckboy.
The old fuckboy.
They go back to the ball separately, and they're both having a horrible time.
Yeah.
And while Simon is just kind of walking around trying to figure out how to get out of the situation of having moms come up and say, "You want to marry my daughter? She watercolors."
She's a really good pianist. Come on, look at her. Look at those fingers. Look at those fingers.
I know. Pull out the piano. Like I taught you. Come on.
It's in her purse.
I know. While he's trying to get away from that, he finds kind of safety with the brothers of Daphne, who are actually looking at Daphne being presented to another guy across the room. And it's so messed up of siblings to do. Just like, damn, look at her. She looks miserable.
So Simon quickly realizes that they both have similar issues, but it's on the other end of the coin.
Yeah. And he thankfully goes over to stop that awkward situation she was in.
Also because he's trying to run away from
his own situation.
The moms, yeah.
Yeah. To get out of more moms talking to him, he asks Daphne to dance.
And then drags her to the dance floor.
They talk about so much. They talk about trying to get away from society's conventions because they hate the idea of having to chase for marriage, women expected to only have marriage and children and really nothing else. Simon comes up with this idea. Brilliant plan. It's actually in history, if you think about it, he's the first one to ever think of this. I don't think anyone's ever done it. It comes out in the news George Washington was like fake dating someone. No, it was Simon. He was the first. He suggests a ruse to fake date Daphne.
What can go wrong?
You like fake dating though. Not like in real life. No, but like as a trope.
Don't expose me. I'm just kidding.
As a trope.
I do like the fake dating trope, but we will talk about the story. It didn't really follow it that well.
It's like a good
start.
It's a good start because the point of it was if someone who is pursued and is handsome and has this title of Duke with him, if he is with another girl, girls will stop chasing him.
So the moms would respectfully back away from him.
Thank you, moms.
Thank you. What is Daphne getting out of this, Cheli?
Because, it's the opposite. Because men won't respect it,
They won't respectfully back off.
Because when a girl is with someone else, they're more desirable. So, that sounds like such a dumb plan, but it works in like 5 seconds.
For real. Like as soon as they stop dancing, she's already dancing with some other guy.
And it even continues to the next day where there's like a lot of suitors at her house. And let me just bring up that with fake dating, you're not supposed to care about who the other person is with. And I understand that fake dating usually turns into like romance.
Slowly. Usually.
But it didn't do that.
Ideally, it'll be a nice little gradual change. As soon as Simon sees all of these potential suitors professing their interest in Daphne, he gets really jealous.
He does. And he's just kind of standing there like, she's not looking at me. I've been in here like 37 seconds and she hasn't even turned. I'm right
here, Daphne. Oh, because she was smiling at somebody else and he was like, oh, freaking dare she.
I don't know if you remember. He says something like, oh, I really want to punch that person in the face.
Yeah.
The poet. In his mind. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so violent. You just met this girl like 2 seconds ago.
You didn't even like her.
I know. Like the mom really likes Simon, even though she was like, oh, you shouldn't date a Duke. And then after she meets him, date a Duke.
She was down for it. She was like, wait a minute, hold on. Did I say that? Backtrack.
I didn't mean, sorry.
So when Simon goes in, she immediately kicks everybody else out. And so she leaves and they're alone for a little bit.
Yeah, Simon and Daphne are alone. And they're just going like, oh my gosh, this plan is working so well. I have so many suitors and nothing can go wrong.
And then it goes wrong.
And then it goes wrong because that's how books work.
Yeah.
Anthony, which is her older brother and Simon's best friend, walks in and he's so angry. And this character, who, by the way, was introduced before, the start of a complex character, is just kind of demoted to this one-line character who just says, I'll kill you.
He's just this overprotective brother over her. So he busts in pissed as fuck because he knows Simon. So he knows that Simon has no interest in marriage. He has no interest in a family. So he thinks that Simon is just playing with Daphne's feelings.
Yeah.
So he's trying to stop them from even hanging out together.
And Daphne is just like, you don't understand. Don't ask questions. And Simon, after one day with this ruse, is like, you know what? This isn't gonna last, Daphne. The stress is eating me alive. I haven't slept. I haven't slept.
I'm lying to my best friend, Daphne.
Anthony, it's just a ruse.
Yeah.
It's just a ruse. And Antony's just like, well, Antony says, I kill you because that's his only line. But if he did have lines, he basically said that he was going to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So this ruse had 3 rules that it had to follow.
They can't be alone together. It can't go beyond the room that they're in. And if Simon disrespects Daphne, Antony will kill him. But we already knew that.
Well, I'll kill you. He says his famous line.
I'll end you.
He knows about it and he restricts them from going any farther, which is okay for the moment. They do go to a few balls that aren't really talked about in...
Oh, it's assumed that they go to other balls.
They start developing a friendship. And there's even, right after this scene, actually, when the rules are made, Simon has a dinner with the Bridgerton family. And no matter what, this will be hands down my favorite scene in the whole book.
Okay.
Because I love family dynamics in stories. Because usually siblings aren't painted well by writers sometimes.
In this moment, Simon realizes how different his life could have been had he had the privilege of a family. And so when he's joining them for dinner, even Violet makes a comment of, oh, we just really like each other, which I'm assuming is rare for families in this time, maybe. I think it's more common that they eat separately. Personally, I do wish that this was a moment when Simon's character was pushed forward, and this was something that he could have seen for himself. But instead, it was just kind of like that's kind of cute, I guess.
Let's go ahead and fast forward to the first important thing that happens in this book. The first important thing that happens on page 182. We're starting at the Trowbridge ball. It is a ball that Daphne actually just goes to with her family. She doesn't go with Simon. And she gets a little sad because she wanted to go with Simon, but Antony actually suggested for them to go, or for him to leave her alone, because for this ruse to work, she needs space for other suitors to come talk to her.
Daphne was supposed to take this time to talk to other suitors, but she was focusing on Simon. And Antony notices, so he's like, you know what? You need to back off.
And at this ball, she's just kind of sitting there on her own, and she realizes that the perfect guy for her is Simon.
Even though she hadn't been courted by anybody else.
It's Simon.
It's Simon.
She had good suitors.
She did. That poet guy.
But she realizes she likes Simon. And she's like, oh, what am I going to do about this? And Simon, you know what? He wasn't invited, but he's freaking there. Simon just knows where to come.
He just knew where she was.
Yeah. And when she asks what he's doing there, it's so romantic. He came because he was bored.
I'm here because I'm bored, not because I want to see you. He's like not even interested in her.
But he is, though, because they go outside of the ball. They're like out on a balcony, right? Or is it a terrace?
I think it might be a terrace.
They're just standing outside together. And she starts getting a little close to him.
Yeah, they're having an intimate moment in front of people.
I mean, they're already breaking rules. They're not supposed to be alone together. And they're not supposed to do anything outside of the room, basically, like...
Nothing scandalous, okay? Yeah. She's a lady.
And I mean, kissing someone else in front of the public, mostly in Regency London, is scandalous. Like, it will be talked about.
I don't even think she's allowed to kiss anybody before marriage.
We're going to learn this very soon. But women don't really know much about anything that has to do with relationships or having a family or making a family.
Yeah.
But she just feels it in her. She's like, I'm down. Are you down? And he's like, we can't. We can't.
He's just like, please, Daphne, control yourself.
We can't. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to go to the garden. And if you don't come, that's on you. And she leaves.
So he's not allowed to leave her alone.
Because something might happen to her.
Because something might happen to her. And also, he promised Antony that he wouldn't leave her alone.
So he goes after her. And
you said it really nicely. Daphne coerced Simon to go into the garden. He did not want to go into the garden.
He did not want to.
He kept telling her, Daphne, stop. And she was like, nah, I'm going to go to the garden.
Because I feel like going to the garden. And she goes to the garden and he is standing with her alone in this garden.
Yes. And then
they kiss. I think I was still down. I think I was still vibing because the vibes were in the garden. They were.
I don't know if I was vibing.
Okay, can I tell you something though? They kissed at the end of the chapter and I was vibing. But then the next chapter started.
But then I kept reading.
I kept reading and this kiss became a lot. This was their first kiss. By the way, Daphne doesn't know how to kiss. She doesn't know how to kiss.
She learned.
Well, she learned quick because in like 2 seconds her whole titty was out. And they were so into it. He was like reaching up her dress, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was about to undress her.
In the garden. It felt like it. And she was so into it. She didn't know what was going on.
But she liked it.
Even if she liked it. We heard 3 famous words from across the garden. And it was our boy. Our boy, Anthony.
I will.
Not if you put an apostrophe.
I will.
I'll kill you.
Okay.
By Anthony, her older brother, who is just looking at her his sister with her whole titty out.
Ugh,
that's so weird.
Embarrassing.
And she's just like
scoops it back in. Poor girl. That was not
okay, but it was her. I don't want to say it was her fault. She has no idea about anything about relationships.
Past kissing, I don't think she really knows.
It was kind of both the Duke and her.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, The Duke and I by Julia Quinn.
I knew you were going to do that.
Thank you. It was both of them. But I mean, Anthony sees this and gets so angry and just starts punching the Duke.
Yeah, he starts fighting with him. And Simon's not really doing anything back. He's just kind of letting it happen. And then our favorite scene happens.
Oh
what happens, Cheli? Do you want to talk about it?
I think I can. I think I'm ready now.
Okay, talk about it.
So, you know how in these books, girls are kind of painted as like damsel in distress?
Like, oh, please save me. It's okay, let it
She falls. It's weird to say. She falls into a bush.
Okay, so Simon and Anthony are rolling, okay? So roll. And here's Daphne. She walks up to them while rolling, and then she just gets lunged into a bush. So I know you can't picture it because it was hard for me to picture it, but just picture her stuck inside of it, and she's like screaming because it's scraping at her.
Okay, wait, hold on. That's a very strong word you use there.
Scraping?
Yeah. It was scratching.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I was trying to help her.
I accidentally scratched you right now.
It hurt.
I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Are you gonna make it?
No,
Niles, get the medicine. The medicine on the phone. Get Tylenol on the phone.
Get Tylenol.
So ridiculous because she's literally just laying in a bush going like, help me. And the boys freak out. They get up and they're like, Daphne! Oh my god,
Daphne!
We need to do something.
She's losing blood.
I know. It's no blood anywhere. It's just like, you know, when you scratch yourself and you see the white. That's all that it is. But she's just laying there and she doesn't know what to do. I've fallen. I've literally fallen in a rose bush.
Oh my god. Like, are you okay?
I mean, I've made it. I've fallen like, you know, face first into a rose bush. Gotten up, just pulled it off, the most chaotic thing. But as a child, you know, you just kind of do these things. She couldn't get out of a bush.
Well, because remember, if she moved, the dress would tear.
Her brother already saw her titty. What is gonna change?
You want him to see everything else?
He's already seen one. She should just get out of this bush. And I mean, she does get out because Simon is her. Like, oh my gosh, but remember the audiobook? How he's like, I've got you. And she's like, I don't think I'm gonna make it.
So because Simon saves Daphne's life in this,
she could have died.
Anthony, for a second, he was like, thank you. And then he just punched him again. And so they fought again.
And they tell each other that they're going to duel.
But why are they going to duel?
Because he took his sister's, how did he phrase it? His sister's innocence?
Yes, and also he was trying to force Simon to marry Daphne.
Oh, yes.
So he was saying, well, now you have to marry her. And he was like, nah, I'm not going to marry her. And even Daphne was like, I'm not going to force him. So because they're not going to get married, Anthony challenges him to a duel.
And so we're taken to the next day. I think it's actually night.
I think it's that evening, yeah.
Yeah, they don't tell Daphne where the duel is going to take place. But because duels have to have seconds, so the way it works is because it's Anthony versus Simon, you're supposed to have a second person just in case you don't make it. Anthony's second is Daphne's brother, one of her brothers. So Daphne convinces her other brother, there's a lot of brothers.
One of the brothers.
She basically figures out where this duel is going to go, or going to be. And she rushes to the duel. And she sees Simon and Anthony standing on opposite sides with their guns.
And Anthony is pointing it at Simon, and Simon is pointing it in the air.
Yes, because Simon wasn't going to shoot. Because he was in the wrong.
He was ready to die.
Yeah.
He was so ready to die.
For Daphne's honor. Not even for his own.
Yeah.
But Daphne comes and is like, you can't do this because I heard a chismis yesterday. I heard a chismis, a rumor that someone saw us yesterday.
Oh, yes.
And he's like, who saw us? And it's like,
I can't tell you.
So,
I don't know their name.
Chad. He's like, who's Chad? Shut up. Someone saw us yesterday. That's basically what goes on.
Yeah, and remember, society's opinions on you really matters. So Daphne could have been ruined if this, circulated around. But we didn't actually know if anybody saw them.
And this was enough to scare Daphne. So she did want to get married. But Simon just denied. He did not want to marry her. And it was a little sad because he even says that if it were different, if he wasn't who he was, someone who is against marriage, he would marry Daphne.
He said it would be her, if anybody.
But after talking to her, she does this thing where she kind of just makes her voice small and she's just like, save me. Save me, please. He's undone.
Yeah. So before we talk about that, right when Daphne got there, the way that she thought to stop this duel from happening, she went up to Simon and just punched him. For what?
It's her thing.
I don't know why. Why?
I don't get it. See, okay, when she punched Nigel, I was kind of down for it because I thought that was like a good way to show what type of character she was. And she was kind of shown as a character who understands men because she says it herself and she has so many brothers. But what did she gain from that?
I think she was trying to get him to lower himself, like to go down onto the ground to stop this fight, but he didn't, so that was pointless.
Yep, it was pointless. And she cries to him and is like, someone saw.
Save me.
And he's like, I'm undone.
Yeah, he's undone.
I'll marry you.
It just feels very manipulative.
It does.
I don't like it at all. I don't think it's romantic at all.
I was still one brain cell on the exercise bike for me.
What?
I was still one brain cell because after this scene, it immediately goes to their wedding. Well, not too quick, but it goes to their wedding. And it's them getting married and then laughing together. And it's supposed to be like, wow, since they're laughing now, they're going to have a happy marriage.
I felt like this felt more ominous to me. I didn't really think this is so romantic.
See, that's your second brain cell.
That's so romantic.
That's your second brain cell helping. So before they go to their honeymoon, Daphne actually has a talk with Violet, which is her mom. And her mom's like, okay.
Birds and bees, okay?
She's like sweating. I have to tell you something.
She has a chart. She's like, okay.
So let me get my papers out. And she's like putting them on the floor. Okay, so you know how your dad and I had like 8 kids? And she's like, yeah, I know.
Sick. So
Yeah, she's just kind of making hand signs. It's like, Mom, what are you...
I don't know.
Don't ask questions. I'm in it. I'm on page 5. Come on. You got to catch up.
She doesn't really tell her any details besides the fact that this marriage act makes children.
Yeah. She said that the night of her wedding, her husband was going to have her do something.
An act.
And
performance.
This consummation act was going to be what creates children. But remember at the duel when Simon was undone, he did mention to Daphne that there was one thing that he wanted to make sure was clear, that if they got married, he would not give her children. And the reason he said this is because, remember, he does not want to have any more heir to his dukedom. He wants to end the lineage there
with him.
But he's okay with marrying Daphne only if they don't have kids.
And she agreed. But he does word it, I can't have kids.
I can't have kids. So then when Violet is telling Daphne about how to have kids, she's like, crap, my boy can't have kids though. So what act are we going to perform?
He can't perform because we can't have kids.
And then she starts asking questions. Daphne's asking like, okay, well, how many times do I have to do this act? Like, is it only when you have kids? And her mom is like sweating, like, no, you can do it as many times as you want.
She's like,
well, you had 8, so you did it often, right?
You did it 8 times, right?
Oh, gosh. Oh, the poor mom. She's just like, shut up. You figure it out. I'm going to go to bed. I hate this.
Yeah, she basically told her that, oh, your husband. will lead you through it. Don't worry about it.
Gosh. After they get married, after Simon and Daphne are now, what is she, a duchess?
Yeah,
right?
she's a
Duke
duchess.
and Duchess.
Mm-hmm.
They're heading to the estate that Simon grew up in.
Yeah.
But to get there, it takes a long time through carriage ride.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide to stop at an inn. And Daphne's freaking out because she's like, oh, we have to do this marital act. And I'm not ready because we can't have kids and I have no idea what to do.
She's stressed about it.
Yeah. And Simon is stressed for the same reason in a way because he doesn't want to do anything to her at an inn.
Yeah.
So he talks to the innkeeper and is like Daphne is out looking at the window and he's like, do you have like a room with two
spare
beds?
room?
Like two beds?
No, he wanted a spare room.
An extra. He wanted an extra
Yeah.
room. He didn't even want to be in a room with her.
No, he was like, another room, please, please. Okay, no.
And Daphne kind of hears this because the innkeeper is like, we only have one room and it's one bed.
Yeah.
So, and you know, they're married. So Daphne's like, I'm down. Simon's
like, I'll sleep outside then.
I know. Can you? It's snowing. He's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. But they end up sharing a room, and Daphne goes in there and is like, okay, marital act. She is nervous, and she tells him that he's nervous because she knows that she has to do this marital act. But she's like, but you can't have kids because you're what word does she use?
You're impotent.
Impotent. Is it that?
I think it's impotent.
And he laughs because he's like, I know what I'm doing.
I think he was offended at first.
He was, but he laughed afterwards because he's a fuckboy. He's like, I know what I'm doing.
He's like, don't worry, girl.
Oh, I'll
give you a good time.
I hate it because they do end up
having a good
consummating, you know, the marital act at this inn. And Daphne's like, oh, now I get it. The rest of the trip happens and they end up at the estate. And their whole honeymoon is just spent in
their bedroom.
In their bedroom. During the act of consummation, when you know they're done, or at least when Simon's done. Who cares about Daphne right now? Simon tends to finish on the side.
Yeah.
Because remember, he doesn't want kids, so that's what he's gonna do. He's just gonna finish on the
pull
bed.
Out.
But I mean, it's, Daphne doesn't know what that is. Yeah. So she's like, oh, sick. He's peeing. On the bed. I don't know. She doesn't know what it is.
She doesn't know what it is, but she's like, okay, he had a good time.
That's look.
It's right there in front of me. Okay, cool.
While they're at this estate, she makes the effort to try to get to know the people at the estate.
She gets to know all of the servants, and she actually has a conversation with one of them, and she's telling her basically the life of the former Duke and his wife.
How they weren't in the same room. Didn't look happy. And that's the complete opposite of Daphne and Simon, who are always with each other.
And she finds out about his stammer.
The people who work there are so in love with Simon. They're like, I'm so glad that, you know, he has you. And they bring up, I don't remember how, but they bring up children. And they're like...
Oh, they bring up the children because she was saying how, the former Duke and the Duchess couldn't have children. You know what they say, you need a strong womb and a healthy seed.
Both have to be strong, very strong.
True.
And Daphne's like,
what?
Actually, Simon's not a gardener, so it's kind of funny that you brought that up, but thank you. She thinks about this for a while. And one night...
God, the way that it was written was so weird.
One night when they're both sleeping after consummating, you know, because they're always dutiful. They're always doing their business.
Their marital act.
They finish and they're just like,
thank you. Good job. Thank you. Go to sleep now.
After they're done, she's like, thinking about...
She's literally laying down.
Math equations going like past her head. And she's like... he finished on the side. Seed. What does seed look like? And she like lifts herself from the bed, kind of like oh my god, Frankenstein's monster style. Lifts herself off the bed, and she's like, strong seed.
Oh my god, I get it now.
And Simon's like half awake, like, what are you talking about?
You good, girl?
Yeah, and he's like, or she asked, why do you do that? Why do you?
What is that?
What is that right there? That? Pointing at it? What? Right there.
She starts asking him, why can't you have kids? Why can't you have children? He's just confused. He's like, what's going on? I just can't have kids. And so she's trying to pressure it out of him, the situation of him and his father. Rest in peace. He tells her, well, my father, he wasn't a good person. And she just immediately says, I know about your father.
So shut up.
So shut up.
And he's like, oh, damn.
Tell me something I don't know.
That's literally his PTSD.
I know.
And she's just treating it like, whatever, you can still have kids, though. You just lied to me.
Yeah, so she feels
betrayed.
And she also is trying to let him know that, oh, you made me feel stupid, because she doesn't know anything about having kids. And she feels naive and stupid, and she's trying to force Simon to have this moment with her and tell her what happened in his past. Mm-hmm. But then she just kind of like stops it. She's just like, no, I'm out of here.
And he's like, but you started this. I'm out. I'm out. I'm already gone.
Yeah.
She walks out, and from that day on, he
walks out.
He walks out.
Yeah.
But from that day on, they now have separate rooms. Mm-hmm. She sleeps in the room that the old Duchess used to sleep in, which is Simon's mom. Mm-hmm. And Simon has their room, which is the Duke's room.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like going back to old ways.
But before we continue, so I don't know if we mentioned it, but Lady Whistledown always starts the chapters.
Oh, yes.
With, wonderful quotes.
Yeah, remember, she's the gossip columnist.
Yes. So after this moment of Simon being vulnerable with Daphne, and Daphne just completely stopping him from being even more vulnerable, mm-hmm. Lady Whistledown starts the chapter by saying, to say that men can be bullheaded would be insulting to the bull.
Literally, I don't understand why this was written after he was trying to explain to her the situation, because it's hard for him too.
Yeah.
I know it's a situation where she was lied to, but this is literally his trauma.
And she's just trying to make it seem like, oh no, Daphne's the victim here in this situation because she's not getting her kids. She's not getting the life that she wanted.
And I don't know if that quote was supposed to come off as funny.
It wasn't funny.
It wasn't funny. It just made me mad.
It made me so mad.
I felt so bad because after that, he distanced himself too, but he's not doing so great. Yeah. He goes to bars often. Mm-hmm. He constantly goes to Daphne's door and knocks, but she never opens. Mm-hmm. Simon one day is completely defeated, and he is knocking on Daphne's door, like, open up. I don't even know what he says that gets her. Maybe it's just open up, please. And she's like, the magic word.
He said, please.
He said it.
No, she knows that he's completely drunk.
Yeah, and she opens the door, and the only thing he asks for is for them to sleep together. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay, fine, you can sleep here.
He's trying to reconcile this relationship.
And they're sleeping next to each other, and she promises that she won't leave the bed. While they're both sleeping together, she wakes up and notices that he's ready to consummate. His body is, at least. He's still asleep.
She sees the signs. She gets a sinister idea, and she says that she's intoxicated by a surge of power because she realizes that she can do anything to him at this point.
So she decides to go on top of him and hold down his arms while they are consummating. Mm-hmm. And he's drunk, by the way, and still half awake, half asleep.
He is down at first.
Yeah, he is. But then he starts realizing that he can't move and he can't, finish on the side like he's used to. Mm-hmm. And he starts to freak out, and you can see it on his face that he's freaking out. And Daphne's looking right at him. So she's realizing what is happening. But he finishes inside of her. And I do want to read this part. So after she has done this, which is basically the R word.
Most definitely the R word.
He answers with saying, how could you? He repeated. You knew that but she had just curled up in a little ball, her knees tucked against her chest, obviously determined not to lose a single drop of him.
That's disgusting.
It's disgusting because she did this immediately after.
Yeah.
The way that it's phrased, if you read in context with the rest of the story, as soon as they finish, she rolls over to her stomach and is just holding her legs up to her chest, trying to hold everything in. Mm-hmm. Does not even care what she just did.
And Simon is literally panicking. He's stammering. He's just like, what? Why did you do that to me?
At this scene, when it happens, because it is the R word, when it happens in the Netflix series, The part where she's holding up her legs, I feel like they placed it in another scene entirely in a different room.
After they fought and they separated, she went into her room and then you just see her like with her legs to her chest.
I thought she was anxious.
Yeah.
But it's not that.
They make it seem that way.
Yeah.
It's not.
I wonder if they did that on purpose.
Also, when they fight again, and I believe he leaves, Daphne's just like, why is he upset? I mean, I knew he'd be a little mad.
That I did that, but I didn't think he'd leave.
And then she also says that she thought she would heal his broken heart or something along those lines. Daphne,
you can't solve PTSD, Daphne.
She's making it worse.
Shocker. But they separate. The next day, when Daphne wakes up, she reads a letter from the Duke, from Simon, that says, I'm out. Gonna be working at a different estate.
If you want to reach out to me or find me or whatever, just ask somebody.
Yeah, which she never does.
No.
She is completely heartbroken because she didn't think that this would happen. But she doesn't do anything to reach out. She actually goes back to her family for a bit and stays at the Simon's London estate so she can be closer to her family. But she's just living by herself. And it takes 2 months for Anthony, which is her brother, who only has 3 lines, which is I'll kill you, to reach out to Simon.
And say his famous line. Actually, Daphne writes a letter to Simon and she gives it to Anthony to deliver the letter to Simon. Which Anthony is pissed off, but he doesn't really say much about his sister, right?
Simon reads the letter, and the letter's super short. It just says, Simon, my efforts, as you term them, were met with success. I have removed myself to London so that I might be near my family and await your directive there. Yours, Daphne. As soon as you hear that your wife's pregnant, your PTSD...
It's cured.
It's cured. Because he's like, I gotta get to my wife. She's pregnant.
And my child that I totally wanted and planned for.
And he goes to the estate where she's at. She's on a horse, and kind of the same as the bush scene. She falls off the horse and is like, I can't breathe. I'm not going to make it.
I hate how it always happens. Oh, conveniently. Oh, he shows up and she falls off a horse. He's like, why are you on a horse? You're pregnant. It's like, you didn't even care about this baby anyway.
Yeah, and then afterwards she reveals that she's not even pregnant.
Yeah, she had her period that day, I think. I don't know.
The day, or after she had sent the letter already. She thought she was pregnant, but she wasn't. Simon, I don't know if he's relieved or not. Because after that... Simon apologizes to Daphne.
Yeah, when it should have been the other way around.
And Daphne was a little confused. She was like, you're not mad at me for what I did. And Simon's like, nope, I was mad at myself, not at you. It's like, no. I was there. I was the third person.
I'm going to need you to backtrack.
Right there looking up at you guys. You were kind of mad at her.
Down.
Wait. Yeah. Looking down at you guys.
He had every right to be upset with her.
Yeah, but he wasn't, because it wasn't her fault, according to this book.
She crossed a boundary, a very serious boundary. She never apologized for it, by the way, even when they were making up in this scene. No.
Oh, gosh.
No apologies.
And this book, by the way, after that scene where they make up, this book ends so quick. They're just laughing. In love. They go to the estate and everyone's there. Every single Bridgerton, not really, but most of them, the important ones, A through D. All of them are there, and the mom is there too. And
to drag them out.
Yeah, and it's like, family, you're gonna leave because I'm about to go consummate with my wife. And instead of being grossed out, they're like, oh, you're so silly. That's so funny. Oh, I love this family. I love you. It's like, now it's Anthony's new line. I love you.
Instead of, I'll kill you.
I love you. And, he goes upstairs with Daphne and is like, you know what? I got a proposition, but it's going to take
9 months?
Yeah, it's going to take a few things. We're going to need a bed and time. It's like, oh, how much time? Like 9 months, I would say. And she's just kind of like, she's down, but then she says, oh, by the way, I don't want a kid right now. I just eventually want a kid. Just so you know.
Yeah. She just decided to tell him, you know what? Kids? I can wait.
Oh, wait. I see the confusion. No, I didn't want kids. That's weird. That's weird. I thought
you knew.
This is awkward.
It is.
I don't even know what to. I feel like I'm slowly like going down in my seat because now. Okay, wait. Are we done with this?
I think so.
Okay, I hate this book.
Okay.
I hate this book.
I think it's obvious
much
how we feel about this book.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm like getting old. Remember how we told you guys that love ignores every rule?
You remember that?
I didn't think it meant crime.
I didn't think it meant consent.
Oh my gosh.
What the hell?
Okay, wait, Niles, I know you know this, but I don't remember right now. When was this book published again?
January 5th, 2000.
I hate it. I know that back then people were less, this isn't right, and it's still not right.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, people weren't able to look up certain things if they didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And if this was in literature that this author was reading at the time, of course she's going to write in that same style. The fact that even if it was made into a show and it came out like this, even then they could have changed it.
Mm-hmm.
It still stayed the same. It seems very common for women to only want kids because that's all they kind of had back then.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so romanticized.
But that's not the way you get it.
That's not the way you get it. And the fact that Daphne was forgiven.
And that she never apologized. She was never sorry about it.
She was bad from the start. Niles brought it up during one of our breaks. But that part where we were talking about the garden scene, not the garden scene, the duel scene, where they brought up that someone had seen them kiss. She brought up who it was, which was the person who was flirting with her in the first ball in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually one of her brother's friends who wouldn't have said anything.
Mm-hmm.
So she actually manipulated the situation to make it so the Duke would say yes.
She felt like a villain to me, and I was not rooting for her at all. I was like, I don't want her to end up with Simon.
I wanted to root for her. I liked...
in the beginning.
Before we started reading it, I liked the idea, because remember I told you I wanted to buy all these books? Because I liked the idea that it was also nice. I did, and then I deleted it when I finished this book.
Thank God. Thank God for that. Imagine you bought them all.
Oh, I would have gifted it. I just think that Daphne was not written well at all as a female protagonist. She's so bad.
She's horrible.
She's disgusting. And even her, like, trying to, like, fix his PTSD, there's a point where she says to him, well, I had a happy life and a good family.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't have a happy life or a good family. So, like, maybe get it to be happy. Because I'm happy, so you should be happy.
Get that happy family, and then you'll be happy.
Hear me out. If we have a kid, you will be happy. Which, I can't believe she solved all the issues.
She solved the conflict in one paragraph.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think it was that easy.
I do want to say that I felt completely different about the Netflix adaptation. Daphne's character in the Netflix adaptation was not sinister at all. I felt like she was a icon. Like, she seemed like a feminist. I even admired her. But she's not the same one that was in this book.
Yep. They did make her a lot more likable.
I don't think we read the same book.
They're making the second season soon. And they're not even going to bring back the Duke.
No.
So why was he there?
Bye.
I know. Back to his estate.
Right.
Back to separation.
Back to his rake ways.
Maybe that's for the best.
Maybe.
Not the rake ways. For him to be separated.
I don't know. I think it would have been nice to see them all together. I mean, Anthony was always meddling in Daphne's affairs. She deserves to do the same. Let
me read my overall thoughts.
Go ahead.
This book was a good attempt at a romance novel. It started off really strong with the idea of this ruse of fake dating. I was down for that. Both of the characters were different, they were funny, and they were likable. I was so down for that at the beginning. With that quote, love ignores every rule, I was so excited to see that actually happen. Because when there was those rules that Anthony gave for the ruse, I was under the impression that we were going to see Daphne and Simon get into, like, awkward situations, trying to, like, you know, hide from others, and then, like, fake dating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought that was going to happen, and I was so down for that. But you know what? Don't dream too much.
Don't dream too big.
Don't
dream.
don't. So the pacing of this book is hella quick. Although these relationships were meant to be fostered in a certain way to show, like, that it was a complex relationship, I feel like the pacing made this book feel like a fever dream. It was literally like the ruse, and then Daphne had her titty out, and then the R-word scene, but also they're good. And also at the end, by the way, there's an epilogue, and then they have like 40 children. So it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I agree that this book did have potential because I did like the characters to begin with, but the character building was just like thrown out the window. I feel like there was so much gaslighting and toxicity that it just stayed like that throughout the whole book. And mostly for Daphne. I feel like Simon had potential, more potential than Daphne did. But I mean, this book is the Bridgerton book. So if your main character can't even be likable, then what's the point? I also don't like that the R scene was forgiven. Like, it was completely dismissed by the character who experienced it. And they painted Daphne as this perfect character, as this saint. And although sometimes, like I said, it might happen in history that women were really big on having children, I feel like this book kind of glossed it over. And they shouldn't have done that. I said romanticized earlier, but I feel like they didn't romanticize it. It's not like they swooned over the idea that this happened. But the fact that it wasn't brought up again and it wasn't talked about is gross. If love truly ignored every rule like the back of this book says, I feel like Simon and Daphne should have put a little more effort into breaking the society conventions that they were trying to get out of. Because at the end of the day, they just followed it. There was nothing that they broke. Their love should have been shown through them trusting each other, them willing to do whatever they're able to do to make the other person happy, and them being there for each other. This does not happen at all. And it feels like both of these characters just shut down when things get too hard, which I understand Simon had PTSD, but I mean, Daphne healed it in 0.2 seconds. So it's kind of hard to believe that he had PTSD with the way that this was written. My last thing that I wrote, which is a little harsh, I just wrote, this sucked. 1 out of 5.
You could have just summed it up with, it sucked.
It sucked.
So my overall thoughts is a little bit long. I'll try to cut it short. So I don't necessarily love either of the characters, Simon or Daphne. Simon did lie to Daphne by omission, but honestly, like I said before, Daphne just felt like a villain. Her thoughts were a little bit too sinister, and it just felt like she kept scheming her way into Simon's life. Also, Simon is constantly described as a rake, and yet we never see him talk to anybody else besides Daphne. Yep. So we're just supposed to assume, oh yeah, he's a fuckboy. But he's not. At least nothing that I saw. And in part, I do sympathize with both of the characters because they are just trying to survive in this society that we don't know anything about. And in this society that has these stringent expectations for the two of them. And opposing it has way more drastic consequences for Daphne. So of course, I sympathize with her. But I don't love the way that she went about everything. It would have been better if there was actually a profound connection between both of the characters, and I just never saw it. I think it was driven by lust, especially because she became fixated on Simon right away. She didn't give anybody else a chance. Even when they were married, they never really truly connected. Daphne being manipulative isn't okay just because she's deemed weaker than Simon, and I really believe that this is something that should not be overlooked. So I can't root for Daphne, right? Of course. I think that's obvious. And I just want to say that I don't think that Daphne and Simon were really that compatible to begin with. You shouldn't be with somebody who does not match your goals because that isn't a stable relationship. You shouldn't have to force anybody to see your worth. I would have rooted for them if Simon was the one that wanted a family, or at least would have wanted Daphne enough to let go of that promise. But he never did. It was more of manipulation. And I just don't vibe with that. Yeah. I didn't like that at all. So I would also give it a 1 out of 5. Do I sound disappointed? I feel like I sound disappointed.
I feel like because this book was the reason that we wanted to start a podcast. And when you first brought it up to me, you were in love with the show.
I was in love.
You hadn't finished it yet. And then we gave it, like, we've been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
And we kept giving it ratings. And I think the highest rating I ever gave it was my first rating, which was a 3. And then it went down to a 2.8.
I think mine was also 3.
And then a 2.5.
Because the more that we talk about it, the more angry we become.
Yeah. And I'm ready to just put this book away.
Please. I feel like this book is our curse.
This is our curse. This book.
Because we've talked about it, but something always goes wrong with our recordings.
Yeah. I'm ready to put this book away.
Please. I hope everything goes okay.
But wait, Niles, how do you feel about this?
Yeah,
Because Niles only watched the series, and you basically read the book through me, like, vicariously, because I would always call her when I was driving back from work.
Yeah, you would.
And I would tell her about what I read. Okay, Niles, how do you feel about it?
I hate it so much. It's so not good. They didn't have, like, a relationship at all. And then, like, even when they got married, they were, like, you know, always on each other, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't have any moments. But in the show, they did, like, they even, like, established a friendship.
Which was cute.
Yeah.
That was really cute, yeah.
Which I thought they did in the book, but I guess they didn't. And then Daphne also being, you know, a gaslighter and
Gaslighting?
Whoa!
Gaslighter.
No, she is a gaslighter.
Yeah.
Whoa, I've
No,
never heard
you-
the term. You used it right.
You used it right,
It just kind of caught me off guard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's
You're
a
like,
gaslighter,
whoa.
a manipulator.
She's the lighter.
Yeah.
She is the lighter.
She's doing
And
the
the
lighting.
gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's a gaslighter, a manipulator, and
Toxic.
yeah, she's really bad. And I hate that she didn't feel bad for what she did to Simon, and it sucks that Simon also didn't.
Get the chance
Yeah,
to have an
yeah,
apology.
Yeah, and that he lied to her, but Daphne still sucks.
Low key, she
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah,
She
hella
does.
sucks. Yeah, so I also give it a 1 and a 5.
3 ones.
Oh, can I bring something up too?
Mhm.
With Simon, I liked him a lot in the book, which is great. And in the book, he's perceived as a white man, but in the show, they perceived him as with a black actor, which he did amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
I loved him as Simon.
Me too.
But that time in London, there was racism.
yeah, oh, definitely.
But for some reason, it doesn't exist for certain characters.
it didn't exist.
It didn't exist until one character brought it up. The queen, right?
Lady Danbury brought it up.
Oh, Lady Danbury. Okay.
Yeah, she brought it up. So I would have been fine if they would have been, if this was almost like a
Its
fantasy,
own world.
you know, like, yeah.
But the fact that it exists, now there's something you have to talk about.
Mhm.
And they didn't talk about it. And it just feels really, like, I don't know, incomplete,
Yeah.
you know? But okay, I think we're ready to put this book down to rest.
We're done. And scene.
The next episode, we will be reading the second book.
You liar.
Imagine.
Niles looks traumatized.
I'm sorry, Niles. I didn't mean to say that. I'm so sorry.
We are not.
Okay, but I think we're done. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.